I agree that like the scooping nature of news today, the business models, they don't work. Meaning they'll never lead towards more truth because they're trying to get more clicks sooner, faster,
Yep.
and like a
It's
rabbit
attention grabbing.
fit.
Right.
So I wonder if there's ever going to be a service that says, okay, what we do is we go back through historical news and we try to say like, this is true, this is not true based upon facts. Because if there was, I mean, I don't know, like would people subscribe to it? Because I don't know. I think I would. Because I am at the point now where I've recognized that bias within myself. It's like I've started to be like this, where I've started to be like, I don't know what's true anymore. And so I'm like, I kind of want to know what's actually true. And so I think about like using AI tools because that would take too much research.
The other thing is to think about, would you be willing to subscribe to a digital agent that can help with triangulating? And so what if there was a digital agent, maybe the code is open source, so you can make sure the agent has no backdoors and, you know, it's there to represent you. And I have to claim, this is not just my idea. If your viewers have ever read the books of Ian M. Banks, I highly recommend it. It's non-dystopian science fiction because I think there's actually a whole lot of, right now we have a whole lot of dystopian narratives and it's, you know, I mean, you think about what's on the horizon, but this is actually the idea that we get through the messiness that we're currently in and that basically everyone has their own personal, it's a combination digital agent and drone that supports them. And so it helps you with trying to triangulate information. But similarly, if someone tries to do something to your person that you don't like, the drone politely slaps them back. And so in some respects, it's national security at the level of one as opposed to of an entity. And you might say this is kind of anarchy. But what he shows is, you know, that if you allow individual choice, but then the digital agent plus the drone is sort of reflective of that person's choice, it's almost modern philosophy, which is do unto others as they would have you do unto them, or they would permit you to do. And then we know that's sort of like the golden rule and some sort of interesting reflection. I think that's how we'll eventually get through this without becoming autocracies, when we allow sort of the amplification of the triangulation that you need to do personally. But it also sort of says the drone can actually disagree with you and say, I know you think this is true, but have you seen this other article that maybe will give a little bit more nuanced context? And I say that because there have been research studies that show you take people from both sides of the political aisle and you give them a very simplistic article, and then you engage them in a debate. They're going to be very simplistic in the debate because they were primed by that simplistic article, even if it's unrelated to what they're debating. If, however, you give them a completely unrelated article that is more nuanced, it gives both sides of the issue and it's more nuanced, and then you have them debate something completely different, they're actually more reconciliatory and they're actually primed as a result of reading a more nuanced article. So I think it's almost like if you are what you eat, you are what you read and what you see. And so if we can get people back to, like you said, a paying model that provides more nuanced context and things like that and says, look, you know, human society is messy. Anyone who tells you this is a single side of the issue is probably, you know, selling you short. But here's how you can be exploratory towards it. And again, helps deal with the fact that there's only 24 hours in the day. I mean, 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. We've got to figure out ways to encourage people to be more nuanced. Otherwise, like you said, we're going to become autocracies of thought. And then from autocracy of thoughts, autocracies in reality.
Yeah, I think about how this model, like I'm further now thinking what you just described, and like, is there a way? And we've had so many times where people have been on talking about communities, you know, blockchain, which is the idea that, hey, everyone could be part of it. And like, you imagine we're passing blocks of truth or that, you know, they have a monetary value, but it's like you get more rewards for scooping other people like with truth. It'd be interesting because it, you know, I agree, like in real time it's probably impossible because the truth is unknown, but historically it'd be interesting because you could theoretically start rating sources. Like imagine if I knew what percentage of what David says was true at the time, given the knowledge that was learned within like the next 30, 60, 90 days or something like that. It would help us as people like recognize individual authority. It would also help recognize individual lack of authority or like sources, right? So like the Onion would get a 0 rating. People like, oh, this is totally fictitious, even though people legitimately retweet Onion articles thinking that they're real, which is mind-boggling to me.
Mind-boggling. Yeah. Well, that plays into our confirmation bias. Well, so it's interesting to say because we do have early examples of prediction markets where people are rewarded for, like, you know, like they're trying to guess who's going to win the election or something like that. Now, if you recall, back in the early 2000s, we got a little bit in trouble because the government, it was probably phrased incorrectly, but the government came out and said, we want to use prediction markets to guess about world affairs. And next thing you know, someone was saying, they're going to use prediction markets to guess who's going to get assassinated. And it's like, oh, no, we don't want to guess on that. But you're absolutely right that there interesting things is it shows that prediction markets, when you're actually betting some sort of credit system, as opposed to just asking people for a poll, when there's some sort of wager on the line, people are actually more truthful than just giving you their feelings because they spend time. And actually what's interesting also in prediction markets, you can take people who are diehards on one side and you can buy the shares low from the opposing side from them because they're all supporting on their side. And you can sell them high to the opposing side and vice versa. So you can do arbitrage, and that arbitrage actually balances out figuring out the truth. So this is where I think at the end of the day, like you said, whether it's through, I don't want to have a reputation score because I'm very worried about what China's doing with Sesame Social Credit. For your viewers, if you're not familiar with this happened, this is now, I guess it's almost 10 years old. It's not exactly 10 years old, but it's the idea that there are scores assigned every day to people's activities in China. And the challenge is, of course, who determines those scores and who's controlling those scores and can that be manipulated? But you're absolutely right that we'll have to figure out how we navigate through this. One thing I would also say, the United Nations actually contacted me about 2 months ago, right when Ukraine was also going on too, and I was doing work there. And they said, we'd like to think about how we can do more community-centric data market activities.
What's that mean?
Well, you think about it, right now, mostly your data is not benefiting you. You know, if anything, it's giving you that free app or it's giving you that free service. But that's about it.
Yeah, it's giving me that advertisement. I should buy a new surfboard. That's about it.
All right. And even then, you don't know what else is being exploited. You know, it's very extractive and it's only going to a few companies and things like that. And then you've got Europe with general data protection regulation that says, you know, you must think about protecting people's data. And the trouble is you've got 5,000 to 10,000 violations of GDPR per day that go, you know, GDPR is not working. You know, it's a great signal, but it's not working. So the idea is, what if you actually said, whenever you engage in a data activity, there also has to be some community benefit, whether it's to the local, regional community by geography or by the community by interests. Like these are people that care about hiking in the environment, or these are people that care about surfing in the ocean. And the idea that collectively our data has to have some benefit towards us beyond just giving us a free service or ads. It could be, for example, when COVID was being initially addressed in the United States, there was actually in the southeastern United States, there were people that were concerned that there was hesitancy on certain groups. For example, there was concerns that blacks were not getting tested for COVID. But when you actually looked at the data, it turned out that states had put the testing sites where people lived, even if where people lived, they spent 45 minutes commuting to where they worked. And so if you had a testing site that was open during the day, well, it didn't make sense to put it where they lived because they weren't able to use it because they were working somewhere else. And so that was just the idea that maybe your commuting patterns, and again, we don't want to identify specific people, we don't want to violate privacy, but it could tell the government where to put testing sites to be more effective to where you actually work. And then, believe it or not, a year later, when the COVID vaccine was being rolled out, initially, if you remember, it was age restricted. It said you had to be over 60 or something like that. Yep. There was concerns that there was, again, hesitancy on Hispanics and blacks to get tested. But it turns out, unfortunately, for unjust historical reasons, that if you're over 60, unfortunately, you're more likely to be white at the moment. And so by placing an age restriction, the government was actually biasing who could get the test. And so it wasn't hesitancy on these communities, despite what the different newspapers were saying. There were newspapers saying these communities are hesitant. It was like, no, it's just you pass an age requirement that was bias itself, lift the age requirement, and now there was no hesitancy to begin with. And so it's one of those things that if your data can actually help inform either the government or companies where to better deliver services that actually benefit you, it's not just extractive, that would be more community-centric.
Hey, thanks for watching. This segment is brought to us by Salesforce Platform. Visit salesforce.com/newsletter to discover timely insights and useful tips tailored to your role. Subscribe to this channel and get more great IT and tech interviews with top industry leaders.